You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky left the White House earlier than planned on Friday after a bitter exchange with US President Donald Trump. The two leaders were speaking ahead of a planned bilateral meeting when the conversation devolved into an unexpected verbal spat. Zelensky had planned the meeting in the White House to help his country convince the US not to side with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Instead, US President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance attacked the Ukrainian leader, underlining how the change of administration in Washington has undermined Kyiv's attempt to maintain Western support for its war effort.
Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
Trump has sided with Putin since taking over as president, shocking his traditional allies in Europe and beyond, and leaving Ukraine increasingly vulnerable. Friday's outburst was the most public display of that shift till date.
Your country is in big trouble.
Can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
I know.
You're not winning this. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out.
Trump and supporters might argue that his tough stance was a strategic move to push for burden sharing among NATO allies or to pressure Ukraine on its policy matters. But was his behavior as seen at all necessary?
But it was really how bad the American leadership looked to the world and how ashamed we should be that our leaders act that way.
Within Ukraine, the incident has been perceived as significant diplomatic setback. The deal had been seen as a step toward economic recovery and a potential ceasefire with Russia. The verbal volley has also shown a looming crisis for NATO. Trump has long criticized NATO allies for not spending enough on defense, and the spat could be part of that broader stance. He's also pushed Europe to take more responsibility for its own security, rather than relying on the US. Zelensky left the White House early following the confrontation without signing a much talked about minerals deal. What was the deal about? The US and Ukraine on February 25 had agreed to sign a deal which was at the heart of Kyiv's push to win US support. US President Donald Trump had repeatedly claimed his country had given Ukraine some $350 billion in aid and suggested for a repayment. International think tanks claim the US has sent less than half of what Trump has claimed.
And we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through
I
this
said
stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and you
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about West?
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
Washington initially sought for rights to $500 billion in Ukraine's natural wealth, but Kyiv refused, as Zelensky referred to such a plan as selling his country.
For the United States to try to extract $500 billion in mineral resources from Ukraine after giving Ukraine about $60 billion in aid is an absolute absurdity. Not only is it obviously completely lopsided, but we need to keep in mind that Ukraine has been defending the United States and our West European allies and our European allies more generally from Russian aggression ever since Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time in 2022. The Ukrainians have been doing the fighting and dying. All we've done is provide some aid, which is a pittance compared to what we've gotten from them, which is defending Europe against Russian aggression.
Under the proposed minerals deal, a reconstruction investment fund was to be formed and jointly managed by the two governments. Kyiv would be funneling half of the revenues from future natural resource projects into the fund, with money being reinvested in more developments, but details were yet to be decided. Trump says he's trying to get taxpayers' money back, but there's more to the deal. Ukraine has significant deposits of titanium, lithium, and rare earth metals that the US has been looking at.
Trump wants rare earths because the American economy is highly dependent on Chinese sources, and it's an economic and national security risk. So reason number one. Reason number two is that there are not so many American companies who are able to mine and produce rare earths within the US. Reason number two. And reason number three is that, I mean, there is Ukraine, and we have these commodities right there. And in order to avoid that the Chinese will take over Ukrainian rare earths commodities and build up potential mines there, it's an option for the Americans. And reason number four is to make the Ukrainians pay for the American military support.
Ukraine has 6% of global reserves of graphite, a crucial component in lithium-ion batteries and also essential for nuclear reactors. It also has around 500,000 metric tons of lithium and the largest titanium reserves in Europe, which could be capable of meeting US and EU metallic titanium demand for 25 years. It has 2 to 4% reserves of uranium, which is the primary reactive material used in nuclear power generators. At present, Russia and China are supplying 55% of the world's uranium enrichment capacity. In addition to these are the rare earth minerals, a group of 17 elements that are crucial for the defense sector, and also high-tech products such as computer hard drives, television, mobile screens, electric vehicles, camera lenses, among others. They are also crucial to produce magnets. At present, China holds nearly 90% of global processing of rare earth minerals, along with significant share in production of graphite and titanium. Since Washington had been long warned that relying on China for these materials is risky, the US is looking for an alternative supply. In exchange for the deal, Ukraine wants economic reconstruction and, most importantly, guarantee of security with continued US support against external threats, which is where Friday's meeting failed at.
That's why we will never accept just ceasefire. It will not work without security guarantees. Security guarantees, maybe President is right about this document and other, but this document is not enough. Strong army is enough.
Immediately after the Oval Office incident, European leaders took to their social media accounts to express support for Zelensky. However, the lack of a cohesive stance within NATO, especially if the US adopts a more isolationist approach, could likely embolden adversaries like Russia and destabilize the alliance's collective security framework. The fate of the US-Ukraine deal remains uncertain, but it's not yet off the table. Trump's dissatisfaction and hardline stance suggests that any revival may come with stricter conditions or newer demands. Despite the setback, Zelensky has expressed Ukraine's continued readiness to proceed with the minerals agreement, and efforts are underway to secure terms that could be acceptable for both the sides.